on screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt a mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where tonight we're talking eclipses, planetary parades, and more in preparation for this eclipse season. Tomorrow we have our, it's actually an annular lunar eclipse, which we'll get into. It's a solar eclipse. And it's just not total where you're at, probably, unless you're one of the rare individuals who's in Antarctica. And I doubt you are. Penguins, you know, a couple people, maybe like the lizard people, the Illuminati, but not really anyone else. So they'll have their eclipse, but we'll have our eclipse moment as well. Also, of course, offering a blessing of protection and tuning with some of the energies that are inside, which is what we're called to do when eclipses occur. Just go inside, really always, but especially then, and sharing some of that blessing energy with you. So if you choose to come join me tomorrow for eclipse season spark off, get some protection, get some extra alignment and attunement with what's good, true, and beautiful, get some of that protection in and some of that forward momentum, breaking with old habits, moving into the new. This is what we're about with this lunar eclipse. So let's get into it without further ado. And if you do want to join me for that eclipse, you can find it, of course, on roguesoul.org. This is where everything I do is. My books are here. You can book one-on-one with me. Here it says receive healing. You can go to the store, get some orgone, powerful orgone, get protected all the time, get uplifted all the time with those orgone pillars, those orgone lotus votives. You can check out the retreat that's coming up this summer, and also read the testimony of people who have worked with me over the years. But if you click here on schedule or receive healing, you'll see all of the different things, the past life readings, the sound healing, tarot, and more. All kinds of good stuff you can get in on. And here's the solar eclipse attunement right there at the top. So if you click on the solar eclipse attunement, or you can read a little bit about the energies that we're connecting with, and you can book. Of course, there's only one day and time, but wherever you are in the world, you can join us because it is via Zoom, it is virtual. We're connected, of course, in real time via source field, which knows no space or time. So it's unlike us and our linear logical minds. It knows that we're everywhere all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. So go to roguesoul.org to check that out. You can also, of course, be made aware of events like these and more if you're subscribed to my Substack for free. You get event notices, you get articles like Reflections on the End of the World, a lot of health and wellness like Digestive Fire Tonic, and more. All sorts of good stuff. And then if you're at the paid level, you not only support me, what I do, the show, everything that I produce and hand out for free to everybody, but you also get the channeled messages from the spiritual ancestors that come through as they come through, and even sometimes from beings like Archangel Gabriel, who channeled a message through just a few days ago. Archangel Gabriel on duality. As soon as you subscribe at the paid level, you get those, and you also get the whole entire archive of those channeled messages and any other paid content here on Substack. So great way to support me, support what I do, great way to get extra bonus, amazing content for yourself, and also great way to stay abreast of what's upcoming, like this Tuesday eclipse attunement. So you may already know I'm offering that event if you're signed up either to the email list from the site at roguesoul.org, or you're signed up and subscribed to Substack, rogueways.substack.com. Let's talk about the eclipse. First of all, it is the full moon, as it must be for it to be a solar eclipse. And so the full moon is also the kicking off of the year of the fire horse. This is the Chinese New Year, as it's often called. And this is the year of the horse we're moving into. So I often do a whole show just on the year and what's going to be about and that sort of stuff. Well, this year you just get in this little note as we talk more about the eclipse season and some other things. But it's interesting that we get this eclipse right when this fire horse begins. And it's also interesting how much energy around this is very fast moving change, determination, will. And this is some of the stuff that's I've been talking about for years, especially here on the show or here with my healing work. If you've worked with me, it's probably come up at one point or another, how much humanity needs to work on its will, its divine will, and the alignment with divine will, standing in that will, using that will, accepting that it's okay to have a strong will, and in fact you need a strong will, and especially the divine masculine in connection with that divine will. So a lot of that stuff's coming up, both with this lunar eclipse with the solar eclipse tomorrow, with the upcoming lunar eclipse that we'll touch on, and with this year of the fire horse. So we've got a lot of Aquarian energy, new energy, movement, and going into new things, letting go of the old, and also a lot of fiery forward momentum, will, and divine masculine energies. And these are the things that we really want to attune with and help to create here on Earth as we continue to move through all of the Earth changes and the changes in human consciousness. So yeah, here comes the year of the fire horse. So as we have this solar eclipse tomorrow, Tuesday, February 17th, we also have the beginning of the year of the fire horse. We have the Chinese New Year, or the Lunar New Year, as it's also called. So in Chinese astrology, 2026 is the year of the fire horse. It may influence you in various ways. We're going to see what it means here. This is an article from column.com. I don't know much about them, but I read through this a bit and it seems like a good summary. So we're going with this today. Lunar New Year, it says, on February 17th, 2026, is ushering in the year of the fire horse. And with it, a fresh wave of curiosity about the Chinese zodiac always occurs. As a new lunar cycle begins, many people look to the year's symbolism for a sense of direction or insight into what might lie ahead. In the zodiac tradition, each year is associated with one of 12 animals and one of 5 elements. The horse is typically linked to independence, energy, and forward momentum. Paired with the fire element, those qualities are believed to intensify, bringing them themes of ambition and boldness to the forefront. It's interesting to me because I've talked about this as well each year when I usually look into the Lunar New Year and what's kind of coming and Chinese astrology. It's weirdly always seemingly in line with what Athen Commenti tells us about our true sidereal astrological look ahead at the year and kind of the bigger themes. And so it's always fascinating to me, these overlaps in various forms of astrology, and finding our place and finding what energies might be influencing the collective, the conscious, culture and society and the individual. So I find it fascinating that Athen was talking to us a lot. If you go back to that episode just a few weeks ago, here about 2026, and Athen Commenti was on Rogue Soul talking about a lot of the eclipse season, a lot of this stuff, and a lot of Aquarian energy, right? And we talked about various aspects of that and some other things that are also affecting us. And so interesting to see the fire horse sort of aligning with some of that, this new direction, ambition, boldness, letting go of that old, and this intensity and forward movement. Aquarius isn't always intense, fiery, or that, but it is often associated with sort of fast moving momentum. So some overlap there's. It's pretty interesting to me. And so here's a closer look at what some of this might bring. The year of the horse in Chinese astrology, traditionally associated with independence, drive, and sociability. Independence, drive, and sociability. So again, not super, just Aquarian, but there's definitely Aquarian energy, or where the two meet is really beautiful to me. We've just had a lot of Mercury influx as well, and some of the energies that have been coming in recently. And I did a blessing around some of that, I think, last week. And so that's always connected with a lot of these things too, right? Like kind of the quickness and speed with which things come through and move forward momentum, and some of these sociability, connected at least with the communication aspect, right? So a lot of interesting change in this moment and a lot of really beautiful energies to attune to and align to. It says this might feel like a welcome change after the year of the snake, which focused on shedding what no longer serves you. So last year we had a lot of shedding, a lot of stuff that, we're maybe even from long, long ago that we're sort of bringing up to get rid of, to shed old ideas, right? Old paradigms, old ways of interacting, old patterns emotionally and mentally, just letting those go. So if you look at 2025 and see some of that in your life, then that would make sense, at least for Chinese astrology. And also with this, movement into this Aquarian energy, you got to dig up the old and release it in order to get into the new, right? So here we are, ready for the new, ready for what's coming. It says horse years are often described as active, with an emphasis on visible effort and forward progress. People born in a horse year are commonly characterized as energetic and self directed. So, that again, emphasis on visible effort, forward progress, also very Aquarian. There's no accidents here, as I am fond of saying. More broadly, it says the zodiac years are understood symbolically. Rather than predicting specific events, they highlight themes linked to that animal sign. In this case, the year of the horse is often connected with intuition, autonomy, and shifts in pace or focus. This is really what that eclipse is kind of bringing us tomorrow too, and we'll get into specifically the eclipse and those energies. But I just wanted to spend a moment here with this year of the horse, because here it is beginning on the same exact day. It says, why is this year a fire horse? In 2026, the horse is paired with the fire element because the elements rotate alongside the animal signs. The same combination only returns once every 60 years. The previous fire horse year was 1966. So we can even look back at 1966 and see some of the energies there. And I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of protest, a lot of change, a lot of really fiery, independent, intuitive autonomy, sort of shifting that direction, breaking with the old. So a lot of that happening. Who knows what else was going on? But we've also talked about how this is the, what is it, sesquicentennial or something, right? The 250-year anniversary of the United States. And yes, I butchered that. You can go look it up and correct me if you like. But this 250-year anniversary also coincides with some interesting things about Neptune, which we've talked about with Athens as well. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Neptune. It might have been one of those other outer planets, but the return of this hasn't happened since the Revolutionary War. So we're coming back to the birth of the nation amidst, some definitely like pushes towards independence. And it'd be interesting to see if that was also which horse year that might have been, or which Chinese New Year, astrology that might have been too. But we have some of those energies coming back too. So it's a fiery Aquarian, brand new energy. We've already shed the old, right? We've got the horse, the independence, the autonomy, all of that. There's lots of change indicated this year. And so really matching also my yearly tarot. So I take all these signs and I merge them together and allow them to inform me, right? And I hope you're doing that too, and just noticing how much powerful energy is moving through 2026 specifically. 250-year, right? Revolutionary, independence, brand new things, Aquarian energy. We're in eclipse season now, and the year of the fire horse is beginning. It says the fire horse years have carried different meanings across cultures and generations. Today, many people interpret the fire horse as reflecting a period that may feel more direct or fast-paced. The fire element is traditionally linked with visibility, confidence, and strong emotion, which means this year could feel like a time to put plans into action or make moves. That is exactly what it feels like to me. I think a lot of people focus on like the world is ending, and I'm like, hey man, the world is beginning. Just to get real hippie about it, like this is a beginning, right? All endings are. So as one of my books is titled, All Endings Are Beginnings. So here we go into this new beginning, right? And so let's put those plans into action. I feel like there's a lot of moves that can be made this year as things shift. That can feel like a lot of things are being lost too, but maybe we focus on the things that are being born, and that helps us move more easily into all of this fast-paced, new, fiery, aligned, intentional space. So here's some more qualities associated with the year of the fire horse. It might be described as a period of increased activity, stronger expression, momentum, and ambition. May feel driven by progress and visible results. I'd say, especially if you are a horse, that's going to be true, especially if you're one of the fire signs like Leo or Sagittarius, right? Especially, if you're aligned with some of that already, you have a lot of that in your makeup or in your charts, that you're going to have some of that. No matter what sign you are, in the Chinese zodiac and Earth astrology, you might have fire. So even if you're like, I'm a rooster, you might be a fire rooster or something, who knows? So you might also resonate with that. It says courage and visibility. Fire is connected with confidence and speaking up. Maybe a time to share ideas and take the lead in doing so. I strongly encourage us to. I think the loudest people for some time now have been the stupidest and the least emotionally capable. And so, especially, if you're one of the people who are more emotionally capable and more intelligent, which if you're listening to the show or watching the show, you probably are. It's probably important to speak up more. And I always caution people about that. I say, there's always a time and a place, and some people really aren't ready to hear certain things. So we're wise with how we speak up, but we also can always speak up in some way, right? And so that may become more and more important this year. Independence and self-direction. The horse is linked with personal freedom. During a fire horse year, there may be a stronger desire to make independent choices or question rules that feel limiting. That also feels like aligned with some of what's being categorized as right wing, but is actually a desire for more autonomy and less centralized control. So the movement away from like the UN, the WHO, and even the EU, and some of these more centralized power structures, that's a natural occurrence. Like, that's some of this energy that's coming back with the 250-year revolution, of Neptune or Pluto or whatever it was. And also, I know the astrologers out there are like, oh God, I've told you a million times, I'm not an astrologer and I will not remember these things too distinctly. But, whatever outer planet it was, 250 years of that, but also, the personal freedom involved in Aquarius too, this forward momentum, and it's often technological for us, but a lot of that wants to be autonomous and independent against the censorship that's become almost de facto, right? Almost assumed that, of course, we're going to have it. Like, that's been having a big rebellion against that. So some of these rebellious energies are moving more towards this autonomy. They're not necessarily how we saw things in the 60s, or we saw things in the Revolutionary War, those types of energies. They might be a lot less outright war, hot war sort of fighting, and a lot more of just insisting, no, that's not how we're doing it, right? We're doing it this way. We're going to do this a different way. And just by people choosing either to go along with it or not. And as I've always been saying, our best tool we have is just quiet non-compliance. Like, no thanks, I'm not doing that. And that's easy, right? Not always for everyone, but it's a lot easier than a hot war. So we don't have to take from all this fiery change and, potentially revolutionary independence and autonomous sort of directed energy. We don't have to take from this that things are going to get super hairy, or that there's going to be this outbreak in violence. That's not necessarily indicated. And I think the less time we spend feeding that imaginatory future, the better off. The more we're imagining how things could be good, true, and beautiful, and end up for the best for everyone, the better, right? So independence and self-direction. We also have restlessness that feeds into it too, right? Faster pace. We could be impatient. I know I'm impatient to see what's coming, to get it here already. And I know a lot of you are too. And progress sometimes feels slow, and especially now, especially with how quick information can come out and how we're still human, and responding in the 3D, and especially through bureaucracy, is so slow. But we have to remember too that restlessness, we do want to balance it. If we go too fast, we're going to make plenty of mistakes, right? Being human and in the 3D means that we do need to balance that. So don't let the information preclude your ability to take a breath, wait a minute, and let it play out. And impulsivity and reactivity. Fire and the horse are both linked with speed, and decisions may happen quickly. So that's, again, I'd say my biggest caution for us this year is to be patient. Be patient and don't be reactive, especially with the dangers with fake information, AI, propaganda wars happening, this fifth generation nonlinear warfare that's ongoing. You got to be careful, right? So don't jump. Now more than ever, take a chill pill. So it's also emphasizing that here in this article. Choose a clear direction before you move forward. Break bold goals into grounded steps. Schedule rest with the same seriousness as work. Yeah, this is so important. It's not just sleep, right? It's rest, as in taking breaks, not being involved with work or productivity or getting this or that done, but just taking a breath, getting centered, meditate, put your feet on the earth or just sit with your breath. That's going to be really, really necessary this year more than ever. Again, especially with that resistance to overreacting or jumping the gun, or, we want to really focus on that. Practice a pause before big reactions. The whole count to 10 thing, definitely required in 2026. So fire horse, here we come. Things are heating up. Things are going to move fast. Lots is going to change because we're also pairing this with Aquarius, which is also indicated tomorrow. So we have, as this Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year is beginning in the fire horse year, we also have this Ring of Fire eclipse. This is a solar eclipse tomorrow, February 17th. A dazzling annular solar eclipse will grace Antarctica, with only a few southern hemisphere regions catching a partial glimpse while the rest of the world tunes in online. If you want to watch it online, you can. It's early tomorrow for most of us who listen to this show or watch this show. It says an annular solar eclipse will occur February 17th, primarily visible over Antarctica, peak visibility lasting only about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Partial eclipse views will be available from southern hemisphere locations: Chile, Argentina, South Africa, Madagascar, Mauritius, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Tanzania. So those are the people who are going to get a partial eclipse. And actually, that's what led me to, I think, tell a few of you at the last blessing that this was just a partial solar eclipse, but no, it's actually a total solar eclipse. Technically, it's an annular, meaning all of the sun is blocked by this full moon except a slight ring around the moon, because the moon's a bit further away from the earth than it necessarily always is during an eclipse. So if it was closer to us, we would totally block out the sun and get that effect that we had in those few past solar eclipses in the past handful of years. The moon is actually further away, and so we still get a ring of light, a ring of fire eclipse, also called an annular eclipse. So partial as viewed from some places, almost total if you were able to see it from Antarctica. Begins at 9:56 Universal Time, reaching its maximum at 12:12 Universal Time. So 9:56 is when it begins to cross in front of the sun. We've got, totality right in the middle of that time, and then crossing out of the sun's area about 12:12. This is the path where the moon perfectly aligns between the earth and the sun, the so-called path of annularity. It's a remarkably narrow and isolated, sweeping almost exclusively over Antarctica. So pretty interesting. It's sweeping over Antarctica. We'll look at some of the images of that. It's very small. We usually get a lot larger swath of the earth that's getting, that's having this eclipse move over it, right? The path of totality or eclipse will often, the last one swept from, the southwest up to the northeast. The one before that, I think, went from the northwest to the southeast over the United States both times. It made that big X. That was like a big deal. Now this is a tiny little kind of half moon almost looking thing over Antarctica. So very different eclipse than we've been having. Most of us will not, therefore, experience it or see it, but we will be able to see it online if you want to do that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of clips and pictures and videos and live streams and things. It's the world we live in, but it is a quite rare occurrence, so very interesting. And This is part of why I've been called to offer that blessing for tomorrow. Eclipses are very important times spiritually. And so the spiritual ancestors kicked me in the butt, said, you better be offering this. And so we're doing it. And so there it is. So that's tomorrow too. I hope you come and join us. But a total solar eclipse would occur. Well, we already talked about that. What's the difference between the total and the annular? So, so we already kind of got that. We understand it. We'll have that ring of fire. Again, it's interesting to me. We've got ring of fire, right? That itself has these sort of insinuations of a little bit more negative, right? We've got Johnny Cash down, down, down to a ring of fire. We've got this correlation with the idea of what it might be like to sort of fall down into hell. And then it's happening over Antarctica, which is this pretty interesting space where every country on Earth has a treaty that Antarctica is special, off limits to civilians, only open to scientific research. But we all have people like, you know, the Gateses and the politicians and the presidents and leaders of the world who go down there, and they often do it together. And some of them come back with black eyes, and weird stuff happens down there. And also the indication that perhaps pre-cataclysm, Antarctica was free of ice. In fact, we know at some point in our human history, Antarctica was free of ice. We know that because of the Piri-Reis map. And the Piri-Reis map mapped Antarctica when it was free of ice. So not only do we know it was free of ice, we know that humans with cartography skills that were better than any we had until the, I think, 17th century in our recorded history, better mapping skills for the Piri-Reis map pre-glacier, pre-cataclysm. That means literally proof of a pre-cataclysmic, exceptionally advanced society on Earth that we've lost total touch with, right? So we know Antarctica was free of ice, and we know that people who had the ability to perfectly map coastlines were mapping Antarctica when it was free of ice. We know all of that. We know all of that. So that's what's happening with this. This ring of fire eclipse is happening over Antarctica, one of the strangest and somewhat nefarious places on Earth, tomorrow. And so let's see what that looks like. Here's what it looks like. And, you know, I might be drawing long bows here, but that looks not only kind of like a crescent moon pass, an incredibly small path of an eclipse, smallest I've ever seen, but also it makes me think almost of Ouroboros. We've got the smaller end here and the larger, and it's kind of coming back around. And so I get this sort of snake dragon vibe. And I know I kind of joked about like, this is where the lizard people live, but hey, our version of the lizard people, the politicians and the psychopath elite, like they're obsessed with that place. So I don't think it's that long of a bow to draw. So very interesting path of this eclipse tomorrow. What might be awakening, who knows? But that is actually less concerning to me than what you and I choose to awaken within ourselves. And that's what this blessing tomorrow is about. And that's what we're all called here at this time of apocalypse and earth change to do, right? Is to activate what is brightest within us. And so that's what we're going to do. It's what we're going to keep doing. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. So this is the ring of fire, as it will look at totality. I'm calling it totality. It's technically not the right word because it's not a total eclipse technically, but you know, at the full alignment of the full moon and the sun, you'll see just a ring of sun perfectly around this perfect circle of the moon. And that is what you will see. And so that's how it is. So here's kind of a list to, you know, if you're in Antarctica, you'll see the full annular eclipse. If you're in some of these other areas, you might see little glimpses here and there, and the vast majority of the world won't even see a tiny, tiny bit of it. It touches almost no one. So that's it. And here's astrologically what's happening with this eclipse. This is from yourtango.com. It's for zodiac signs that it says basically enter a new timeline after the solar eclipse on February 17th, 2026. So if you're one of these 4 zodiac signs, you might pay special attention, but honestly, we're all moving into this highest of timelines together. So maybe some of these four will notice it more or be more strongly outwardly affected. But all of us are definitely affected by these big movements and big events. So this is astrologically, it says 4 zodiac signs are basically entering a new timeline after the powerful solar eclipse. The eclipse is just a fraction of a degree away from the highly significant 29th degree. The 29th degree represents the final culmination of a period of time with themes of intense lessons and karmic completion. Now, this, we'll just pause here because this is actually what this solar eclipse is all about for all of us, right? Old times are done. New times are here. And this is the Aquarian energy as well. So it's not just this 29th degree that this is happening in, it's also that it's in Aquarius. So I'll keep coming back to that because it's so significant, and especially again, how it aligns with the Earth astrology where we shed our skin of the old snake and we're moving into the fire horse. Very similar, right? So we've got these rebirths, these new timelines, these rising from the ashes of what was in the best possible way. At least that's what you and I are creating, right? And that's what we're here for. And that's what this blessing is for. So very high tension point, it says collectively and individually. This culmination over a period of time of themes and intense lessons and karmic completion, right, on its way out. Many things, it says, will change with this eclipse. And for the astrological signs below, nothing will ever be the same again. Total change, total transformation. So fascinating. It says in Aquarius, this annular solar eclipse kicks off an 18-month period when Aquarius themes affect us all. So this is what Athen was telling us about in our yearly look ahead as well. And that's part of why 2026 feels so intense and so big. It might be much more than this too, right? We always have the potential for the pole flips. The geomagnetic excursion is ongoing, and we've got that in the mix too, potentially. But all the astrology is enough. Right? All the world and cultural and societal changes are enough. This collective consciousness change is enough. So it's a big year. And tomorrow is a big moment of that year. So words that describe Aquarius, it says, include forward thinking, unpredictable, disruptive, rebellious, brilliant, and cutting edge. Now combine that with what we just heard about the horse, with what we're remembering about the 250 years since our revolution here in the United States, right? These things are all coming together in this moment for a reason. It's time for big change, right? And like I said, doesn't have to be the kind of disruptive, unpredictable, and rebellious that is destructive. Does not have to be that. Don't focus on that. Focus on the creative aspects of the new coming in, and the dust of the old is gone, right? And here we are into the new. Focus on that. Aquarius, it says, is the sign of people. And with Mars and Pluto also in Aquarius at this time, the will of the people will be made clear. Okay, I think it was Pluto. I think I was saying Neptune and it's Pluto. Forgive me. Anyways, big revolutions in the farthest reaches, right, of those outer planets. Yeah, Aquarius, it says, is also associated with brotherhood, friendship, and equality. So again, we've got this decentralized technological revolution potential. And that's what I've been focusing on. A lot of people want to focus just on what the psychopaths want and what some of the technocrats seem to want. And, you know, they seem to want these 15-minute cities and these centralized power and, you know, censoring everyone and all of that. Well, that's the old worldview. Right? With our new, fresh, higher human consciousness and the age we're moving into, we want the decentralized but high tech, beautiful tech that serves humanity. That's what we're moving. And that has to do with friendship and equality, brotherhood, right? That all humans deserve this beautiful life. It says groups of like-minded people become important to all of us starting on February 17th. I think maybe it's been important, but you know, maybe it gets highlighted, emphasized, or new revolutions, and that could happen for you. The new groups of like-minded people, or the like-minded people you've already found, have a new resurgence of connectivity, right, and purpose. It says the only downside is that at times some may feel excluded. We might become too single-minded concerning our values and ideals, and so we may want to, you know, keep that in mind, not be too exclusive, and not necessarily leave a bunch of people out of the forward momentum. You know, but part of it too comes down to like, well, are you coming with us? Like, let's go. Like, I can't necessarily hang on and just like drag you forward with me. Like, you got to get your own momentum here. So, you know, Don't necessarily bend over backwards to bring people with you, but don't be so exclusive that you're not allowing people to come along either. It's also associated, it says, with the divine feminine, Aquarius is, and the balance of masculine and feminine energies. What I'm hoping with this is that the imbalance of the feminine that has caused imbalance to the masculine will be corrected and that we get our divine masculine will back, as I emphasized earlier, especially with that fire horse energy, and that the feminine, therefore, is healed and is able to move back to receptivity, which is its true purpose. And that would be fantastic. You can be powerful in your receptivity and have your divine masculine will perfectly aligned within that, if you're a female. So hoping for that, fingers crossed, right? Okay. It says it's not just a simple Aquarius solar eclipse, though. The eclipse is in the sign ruled by Uranus, and it will also square Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus. This is a changeable and unpredictable energy that can go in many different directions. We can expect to see personal changes and people breaking away from things or people who no longer suit them. I'm going to remind you that this would also indicate all those layoffs that are happening because of the technological revolutions, all of those sorts of things. It's like people are really being forced out of certain groups, as we were just talking about, but maybe in ways that will be good and serve them, maybe in ways that offer opportunities to do much more with life in something that's much more deeply aligned. So it can seem unsettling, it can seem disruptive. There's potentials that might not be so easily seen, and those can ultimately bring advancement and new ways of doing things, right? That's exactly what I'm saying, and that's what we want to focus on, no matter how it might seem like what's being lost is lamentable. We want to focus on where we can take things now that the playing field is so much more wide open. So let's focus on that. So here's it says the signs that are entering a new timeline after this eclipse. So especially if you're in these signs, you know, you might have this extra oomph to your rebirth, and the rest of us are here too, though. So Taurus is one of them. Taurus, it says this eclipse falls in your 10th house, which rules career and reputation. And I'm going to tell you, this is a tropical astrology insight. So a lot of this is true even in the true sidereal, which I prefer, which Athen and I were talking about, and which you're probably familiar with at this point. Different from sidereal astrology, different from Vedic or Indian, and so we'll look in a minute at how it might be a little different in true sidereal too for each of us, and no matter what sign you're in, even if it's not one of these four. But it says this eclipse falls in your 10th house. It rules career and reputation. New timeline at work, it says. And so you might make some decisions around that. Leo as well. It says, Leo, this eclipse falls in your 7th house of partners, putting you on a new timeline in your relationships. Partners of all types, though, marriage, committed relationships, but also business relationships. So you might look at how new business, new careers, new relationships there affect your partnerships in hopefully positive ways. And so, you know, you might have a sudden ending if you're in any of these areas where they're not quite serving you, and that might be part of the new, right? The shedding of the old and moving into the new. But if you're in already solid relationships, then they might just have a sort of rebirth and a, you know, renaissance and go deeper, more profoundly, or in new directions that are really beautiful and stable. Scorpio, Aquarius eclipse falls in your 4th house, putting on a new timeline when it comes to home and family and your basic foundation. Can bring big shifts in those areas. And finally, in Aquarius eclipse hits your 1st house, Aquarius, which represents you personally. It's a transformative period in life when you may initiate some long-term changes that ultimately lead to a better situation for you. It includes almost everything, personal identity and appearance, but your goals, your relationships, and more. So kind of all of them, all of the houses. So that's the astrological view on tomorrow's eclipse and some of the things that are coming for us that we're right on the verge of and moving into. And I'm gonna just shift this a minute here. I'm gonna show you. So if you go to masteringthezodiac.com, that's that true sidereal, that's through Athen. I would love for you to do that through Rogue Soul .org. If you go to the favorite things tab, Mastering the Zodiac is there, because that link is my specific link. It gives a little affiliate boost to me if, while you're perusing all the free fun goodies there, you decide to get a reading. That would be really nice for me. So if you want to use that link to get to masteringthezodiac.com, that's great. I'll try to remember to put it below wherever you're watching or listening as well, so you can just go straight there. But you can get a free true sidereal chart that's a little bit different than your tropical chart, which is probably what you have seen if you've ever seen any of your charts, and what you're probably used to. And so in true sidereal, I'm a Fucus. And, if I'm finding Aquarius, Aquarius for me falls in my 6th and 7th houses. So for me, even though I wasn't listed in one of the 4 that we just talked about, I can then look at the 6th and 7th house and see what is likely to be revolutionary, big changes, perhaps starting tomorrow. Maybe we've already kind of been moving into it. And then throughout this year, it might be filling out even more. So 6th and 7th house are work, routines, and health for me, and relationships and legal issues. So I may have some rebirths and, new kind of directions and growth in those areas. So you can go as well, get your true sidereal chart, see where Aquarius is for you, and see which house it rules. And hopefully I'm doing that correctly, as I'm suggesting that you go do that, and that I'm reading that right. That's what it seems like to me based on the symbols and how these go and which houses are here next to Aquarius. So that's how, if I were you, I would go about, seeing how this eclipse and this eclipse season and this Aquarian season might personally transform for you. I think it's fun. I just think it's fun to have your true sidereal chart too. And then there's a little kind of free report for you of your top 3, your sun sign, your ascendant, and these things, and kind of what that means for you. But you can also get a more full chart. And I did that way back when with Athen. I was so happy to have that reading of my full chart and sort of how things are laid out and what they might mean. So definitely recommend it. And again, use that link on the favorite things tab or below wherever you're watching or listening to get your true sidereal report, especially to find out how does this eclipse affect you. And I'll remind you again, my tradition is, very Christian, shamanic traditions, and I've trained under many shamans under many different traditions, native traditions, both in South America and North America. And in North America, one of those was Navajo. And so my Navajo teacher taught me that during eclipses, we don't go outside and we don't sit in the eclipsed light, lunar or solar. And that while the eclipse is happening, we take time to go within. So it's been my habit for many years that I go within, I meditate deeply, and I often have some of my most profound messages, visions, and connections come through in those times. So I highly am suggesting that for you. And this is part of also why this blessing tomorrow is so important. And if you come join us, that can be your moment of going within. Even though we're not able to do this right at the time of the eclipse, just because it'd be in the middle of the middle of the night, middle of the sleeping period for a lot of us. We're doing it as close to it as we can, and it's still spiritually significant, and it still represents that going within instead of looking without during this eclipse moment. In Navajo, it is suggested, in many traditions it is, and not all native traditions have that same sort of perspective, but it's somewhat common, and not just in American traditions, but also around the world. And so focusing on stillness, going within, sometimes fasting as well, and having a little bit of, restriction or going without also. So you're kind of just more and more inward when you're fasting, when you're, letting go of some of the external things, TV or, distractions or addictions, alcohol, that kind of stuff. that also helps you go deeper within. So if you want to mark this eclipse in that way, you can also do that. Let go of some of your indulgences, take some moments to go within and center. And again, if you come to the blessing tomorrow, then that's going to be even easier for you to do. So from roguesoul.org, you can click on schedule a session or book a session or receive healing, and it'll bring you to my Calendly, calendly.com/rogueways. That's also right below wherever you're watching or listening. I'll link directly to the solar eclipse attunement. It is going to be on Tuesday evening. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. It says 6 p.m. here because I'm mountain. And so it'll be in your time zone from wherever you're at. And so you can just book that, click on the date and the time, and then enter your information. You can join us. And the reason that's so helpful is because you are then in the field, right? And when we come together, not only is it my spiritual channel and decades of work doing so and all of the, profound connection that comes with that. It's what I do, right? But also that all of you are then joining together as well. And, you don't get any people's stuff. You're not sharing your information fields personally, but we're just helping with the intention build the field even brighter. So when we come together in groups with similar intention, we have an even bigger connection. And, Jesus said, he said, where two or more gather in my name, there am I. Right. And it's true of all source energy, God or heavenly energy, good, true, beautiful energy, soul, spiritual energy, whatever it is you call it, however you think of those highest source connections, it's true of all of them, that when we come together in a group, it's bigger and it's brighter. So it's easier as well. So people who are like, I can't really meditate, or I don't really know, it's so much easier. And we go way deeper and we get way brighter and we get big connections. So you might find some really deep rest, restoration, healing, wellness come through. And we're really building this inner light tomorrow. Again, when the eclipses are happening, we go within because we're connecting with the light that's indestructible. Can't be blocked out by the moon, right? Can't be blocked out by the sun, can't be blocked out by anything. Nothing could come in between you and that light. And that's what we're focusing on tomorrow. That's what we want to do with every eclipse, is build that inner light and that network of light, or that grid of light, which is indestructible and eternal. So if you're into that, please join us tomorrow. And, if you can't make it right at that time, it's nice for you because it is recorded, not because anyone else ever gets to see it. And also, you don't have to be on video or ever say anything, so it doesn't matter anyways, but because you might want to revisit it. Your internet might go out mid blessing and you don't want to miss it. So I do always record it so people can either come join us at a different time over the next handful of days before it disappears, or they can just revisit it in general. So don't have to be there live with us necessarily in order to receive all that light and that assistance connecting to that grid of light and that eternal source. Beautiful, beautiful. I hope to see you there. Very powerful tomorrow, very powerful moment collectively, and all of us can attune to that and receive. So very exciting. I hope to see you there. We're also this month coming up on some other big energies, which I'm also going to be holding events for. So look forward to these. Again, if you're signed up on my email list, you'll always get alerted to these. If you're on my Substack, you'll always be alerted to these. If you follow me in general on social media, you might be alerted, but they might never show you any of my stuff. So it's better to be on the list. It's better to be on Substack, or otherwise. But we also have these planetary alignment coming. This is right on the heels of, I should say, right before a total lunar eclipse. So we have this essentially total annular solar eclipse tomorrow, and then we have a total lunar eclipse on March 3rd, just a few weeks away. But in between, on February 28th, we have this planetary parade. And so we're going to be doing a celestial attunement, and we're also going to be doing a lunar eclipse. So just like we're doing a blessing for the solar eclipse tomorrow, we're going to be doing a blessing for the lunar eclipse. So And then in between them, we're going to be doing an attunement, a celestial attunement. So all of those are very powerful events and very powerful blessings. And if you've been to any of those events with me in the past, you already know. So you're already get it. You're already going to be there, I'm sure. So February 28th, this is the planetary parade. This is going to be a visual alignment in the night sky where we can actually see all of the planets align. This is going to be Mercury, Venus, Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter. That's some big ones, right? We've got 4 of our major, of our, what they call the traditional sort of 7 planets, and then we've also got those outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, in the mix. So we're kind of bringing in the traditional and less traditional, the originals and the less original. So we've got the big hitters and the outer guys, the inward and the outward. And so those are coming into alignment too. So we get this big attunement and balancing that's coming in. So that's going to be big. That's the 28th. We'll be able to, again, to see that. We'll be able to watch that and see it over many nights, but then it'll have its moment of like perfect alignment as well on the 28th. And so that'll be really cool. Keep an eye on that. Get ready for that event that's going to be coming up in a couple weeks. And like I said, a few days later, we have a total lunar eclipse. This is a blood eclipse, and it's the full worm moon. So we've got the worm, blood, total lunar eclipse. It sounds bad, but I'll tell you, it's interesting too. We're kind of talking about dragon, snake energy and the Ouroboros and how it might be connected with Antarctica and this solar eclipse tomorrow. Well, worm is another word for dragon. And we don't think of dragons when we think of worms, but that is actually true. And you might be sort of like, oh yeah, that's true, right? Usually you see it WYRM in modern times. And that might mean dragon, but it's also true that essentially worm is another word for dragon. And so we also have more dragon energy. Don't be afraid of dragon energy because of the somewhat negative connotations with reptilians. Dragon energy is not bad energy. Dragon is not only one of the Chinese traditional astrological signs. Dragon is the symbol of complete and total enlightenment. And so we can talk about fallen dragons, perhaps, right? Or those who reach near enlightenment and seem to go quite dark at that moment. But we also have those who reach enlightenment and maintain that brightness and that light. And so you would think of them as good dragons, right? And the ascended masters or the spiritual masters, you could call them dragons. And when dragons come during any spiritual work I'm doing, if they're dragons of the light, then that's considered an exceptionally auspicious experience and energy to have a connection with. So if you were getting a service from me and a dragon came through for me, like that's a pretty big deal. And so it's on a alignment with when an angel comes through for people. And so very high level energy there. You can go all the way back to some show I did many years ago about dragons and dragon symbolism. If you want to get deeper into that, you can find that on podcast, wherever you're listening. And maybe it's still there on a couple of video platforms, but that's probably harder to find. They tend to delete my stuff quite frequently. So, and so this blood moon is in the worm moon, which is interesting. It's just interesting. We have this resonance with dragon energy throughout this Aquarius eclipse season and throughout this horse fire year. So March 2nd and 3rd, we've got that coming up too. So look for those 2 events coming up as well. Anytime we've got these big celestial energies, I'm often called to offer these blessings and these events so we can all come together and get in tune with the highest goodness, truth, and beauty. So we're on our highest timeline, our highest experience here, and we're also, just by holding that energy, calling everyone else to that highest place too. The more of us, the merrier, the better we move through this whole highly volatile transitional time for humanity and Earth and our consciousness. So until you know it and roll with it well, holding that brightest of light wherever you are, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
screams, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, a holly suggestions that a flicker rate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceed as mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.